It is time to finish the 2132 RBSL GM rankings. Today we will be climbing to the summit of Mount Clout to see who the best of the best is and who's going to take home the coveted number one GM rank for probably the next 5 to 10 seasons, because let's be honest, I don't do this very often. It's a lot of work. So, the glory stays for a long time. Let's get into it. This is the playoffs here, so before I go, I want to say all these GMs are good. If you like these GMs, ask them how they play the game, because they probably have some good ideas for you. And you should listen to them because they've won. Number 11, we've got Mantis. Mantis, league's sexiest GM, total legend. Mantis has been a guy who has progressed very steadily, I feel, and is always just getting incrementally better. He's not elite by any stretch. He's also not bad. Mantis joined more or less along the lines with me, Evan, Ken, Yanez, right around that 2100 time frame. And Mantis did not start great. He kind of didn't have a lot of anything going on, but then that grew into a 60-win team. And then that grew into a team that went to the conference finals a couple times. And then that most recently grew into the Cameron Turner championship team. Now, do I love the Cameron Turner championship team? I don't. Statistically speaking, I usually like to look at teams plus minuses as opposed to teams like final results, because I think it's just more indicative of the overall quality of a team. Is it self-serving to say this? Potentially, but I also think it's true that your playoff result is actually just a very small perspective on your overall team quality, while your plus minus is a much better representation of the quality of team you built. There's something to be said about playoff coaching. It's very relevant. But just in terms of your skills as a GM and as a baseline coach for the regular season, so much just comes down to plus minus. It's a very clear quantifier. So to bring that back to Mantis, his team with Cameron Turner that won was one of the worst teams from a plus minus perspective to ever win. You're basically, the way I see it is, if you win the championship with a plus minus of under 10, Mantis had a 9.1 or something. Basically, it's hard for me to think he didn't just get lucky. Basically, every championship in the league comes from a team well over a plus minus of 10. And there's about maybe 5 teams in the modern era that have won a ring with a plus minus of under 10, Mantis being one of them. So dope that he got a ring. I don't necessarily think he built a championship quality team. A lot of that was predicated on the no-brainer pick of freaking Cameron Turner, thank you, the true shooting god. But Mantis has consistently put up teams that are going to the conference finals, going to round 2 with consistency, so he's still a very good GM overall. Mantis just, I think, is not willing to step up to the activity level that would be required to go to the next level of GMing. He likes to, he's found a level of activity to play where he can be in the league consistently, and that's more important than anything. Mantis, number 11. Next, we've got Jake, the tree god. Jake is a lot like Mantis in the sense that he has progressed very consistently into a better and better GM. I think he's I don't know if Jake has the next level of quality in him to go to what will be the top 5 GMs, but that does not by any means mean he's not bad. Jake started by missing the playoffs a lot and not looking good, both with the Heat and with the Warriors. I'm only capturing the Warriors here. I don't even know if he was on the Warriors for all these years, but I think the giant streak of missed playoffs is a fair representation of Jake early on. Not a high-quality GM, but since then, he's only gotten better and better. Obviously, everything flipped when he got Bobby Boucher. He rode that to a couple of finals appearances and a league win. That Bobby Boucher team, you can hate and say Bobby Boucher's a cheat code, but at the end of the day, Jake traded for him, so he deserves the credit for acquiring him, I think. And then Jake obviously just went to the conference finals, lost in dramatic fashion to Chris. So Jake has made back-to-back very solid teams. That's all it takes. All you need to do to be top 10. The big question for Jake is is he going to revert back to his old bad habits, or will he continue to be good? Because I think with Jake, the big thing is his focus as a GM. He gets easily entertained by stupid ideas, and they can potentially harm his team. We're seeing that very recently. The big question is he got away with some what I thought were questionable moves, getting Bebo Chad and stuff this season. Jake could have just flopped in the playoffs. I think there was a little luck involved because statistically he was not great. He was way worse than the Jazz. How he took them to 7, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, he did a good job. But I don't love Jake's current team. If it pans out well, though, Jake can continue to rise in these rankings. If it totally flops and he goes back to tanking, maybe he goes down a little. Time will tell. All right, so that was a very short tier. The rest of these GMs are the best of the best, the tryhards. They're always in your DMs. They're always in the main chat, giving opinions. They're thinking about the league when they sleep. They're dreaming about trade ideas. They're masturbating over TC plus TC potential, stuff like that. So let's get into it. At number 9, we have Evan. I can already hear him just screaming, just in his head as he's watching this. But I actually think this is legitimately where Evan belongs. Like, okay, there's a big step up between Jake and Evan, and then when I go to 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 from here, it's a pretty thin margin until we get to like the top 3, who I think are drastically would get one step better. But why Evan at 9? I mean, statistically, Evan is just a little short of what most of these other GMs are going to have. Every GM above Evan is going to have more finals appearances, more conference finals appearances, more round 2 appearances. Evan is pretty good at making the playoffs, but Evan loses in round 1 more than he goes past. Basically, every GM after this is going to go past round 1 more often than they lose in round 1. So, the only argument for Evan as a higher GM is just that the Trent Lamb era happened recently. I'm just not the thing I'm looking for with recency is that you're playing the game differently than you were in the past. And for Evan, I don't think that's true. I just think Evan stumbled upon a better player than previous iterations. I think Evan's biggest problem is that he refuses to play the game differently as time goes on. Evan has basically I think he thinks it's not that he thinks it. Everybody knows Evan is 100% convinced he's smarter than everybody and better, and will refuse to take, advice from other people when he's talking with them, considering trades and blah, blah, blah. And obviously that's Evan's greatest downfall. But Evan has really just not changed as a GM since he's joined the league at all. So credit to him, Evan started hot, right? Evan's very first build was good, had a conference finals team. You almost never see that from a newbie. The downside, Evan just has not improved at all either. He's kind of set in his ways. He's going to continually make solid teams, but not quite championship level teams. And he's going to pray that just a player pops, and that will be what takes him. And that's kind of what Trent Lamb was. I feel that way a lot about his current iteration, which has been solid, but seems a tier short of a championship. And unless he gets a plus DC from Scotty Barnes or something, I don't see how that's going anywhere. So Evan is remarkably consistent. One of the in terms of consistency, he's elite. But I think he just is not willing to update his way of playing to win some chips. So yeah, number 9 for Evan. Next, number 8, Idawin. Idawin is a tough one to rank. Idawin has been good for a long time. Idawin's been going to the conference finals since forever. I think when I joined the league, Idawin was going to conference finals. He obviously won a random ring. Idawin is the proud owner of the weakest team, I think, to ever win a ring, with his Bean Dip squad, which had a plus-minus of 8.8 and won a ring. 8.8 is a good team. A lot of GMs at this stage are shitting out teams every single season that have plus-minuses better than that. So congrats to Idawin for catching lightning in a bottle, but I don't love that team too much. But obviously, he's been super good moving to the Atlantic, where he gets to play against D-League GMs, and he's been really stacking up those win totals and going deeper in the playoffs, which I don't respect necessarily a ton, because he's playing against the East, and the East is really atrocious. Again, a conference finals appearance in the East is a round 2 appearance in the West, in my opinion. But he's made good trades. He's got a great future outlook for his team, getting younger with Jalen Green. Getting Joni Starry was a great decision, and that wasn't exactly rocket science. Everybody loved Joni Starry, just a hyper athlete at 6'8". So Idawin just is another very consistent GM. He's a lot like Evan, where he's not prone to insane flurries. He's pretty even keel. He just makes good decisions. I think one big thing about Idawin, I think deep in Idawin's head, he fucked over the league with the Hattie trade, and it actually made him a better GM. I think that's Idawin's ultimate fuck up was trading Hattie to Adam, and I know he's going to go, oh, but I got good assets for it, and it was a good decision, but he knows. He literally ruined the fun for everybody for a decade because of that fucking trade. And I think that has turned him into a better GM. His results since then have been significantly better. Obviously, he's gone to the finals twice since then after never going. So, yeah. I think Edwin is still learning and very slowly getting better. Maybe this is peak Edwin right here because these teams are quite good. Maybe he's got a little opportunity to figure out how to coach a little better and build more playoff resilient teams. But Edwin is good. Next, Palm. Palm is tough because there's not a lot of data on Palm. Well, actually, quick note. I'm not considering the 8 rings or however many rings Palm won back in the day because I was not around to see it. Did he do it against Milkmen? I don't know, maybe. Did he just cheat? I don't know, maybe. Nobody really knows. It's better with the little bit of the mystique of the past around it. But what Palm has done since he's joined the league is just be very good. He's basically had 2 teams. He had the Michael Campbell / Sammy White team, I think. And then he had this current team, the Coelho and Mac Pappas and Jason Love team. It was someone else before Jason Love, Captain America. And those teams have both been great. Palm's only been to the finals once, but he also has been playing for about half the amount of time. And he has never, there's been no real miss. Palm has twice in 2 builds made teams that statistically are championship level, right? This team that lost in the finals this season had a plus minus of 17. That's fantastic. That's as good as it gets, especially without a cheat code, right? If you're going to have stitches, then okay, maybe you're going to have a little bit of a higher plus minus. But if you're above 15, that's championship favorite territory, and Palm constructed that. I don't know if Palm got a championship favorite in his first build, but either way, that's a fantastic sign that he's very good. I could see why Palm might have gotten 8 rings against Milkmen, or if he cheated, because he's clearly a very good GM. Palm seems to be the type of guy who's really good at making blockbuster deals for guys. Michael Campbell, Sammy White, Jason Love. He just identifies when the market is weak for a guy, and he pounces and he gets him, and he's not afraid of owning a dude who's 30 or 31, which is definitely a soft spot in the league where everybody just wants to jerk it to their 24-year-old full of potential, even though it's actually not the right move for your team. So Palm, the god of the blockbuster, finds himself at 7. As we get more data on Palm, he could very easily climb, and he might turn out to be a top 3 GM, or maybe it turns out there was a little favorable luck involved, and he's more of a top 10 guy. I don't know. Time will tell. We will see. Next, Ken. Of all the people who have been risers, Ken is the most notable. Ken was famously shit on by me, and I think he still deserved it at the time. Ken obviously has now won 2 rings. He's gone to the finals 5 times. So 5 times is elite. Outside of the dynasty guys and the absolute best, that's as high as the total's going to get. 2 rings is also good. And even more impressively, he's done it across 3 completely different teams. There was the Zion team, there was the Trilford team, and now there's the Cover team. However, it's impossible to say that Ken didn't waste Zion. Ken even admits this. Ken waited with Zion. He was content to just ride what was outside of, I forget if Guo was around at the time, but Zion was essentially the best player in the league for a while. I remember Zion just annihilating Jake in the playoffs. Oh my God, single-handedly. Ken had these awful teams, and it was just Zion, and Zion would just go for 40 with 5 steals and 5 blocks against Jake over and over. Absolutely vicious stuff. So anyways, the fact that Zion basically there was that 1 year where he was the champion, and then he never even made it past round 2 for that whole era. Terrible. Not good. But then Ken did a little better. He was given also very good, but not as good as Zion player in Trilford, and he then went and made more finals, more conference finals, just more generic success. And then he was given this most recent team, which really was a bunch of Ken good moves by him. Ken acquired Cover. I don't think Cover was a draft pick. Ken acquired Ricky Baldwin, and all he's done is play very well. There's a factor of this championship squad from Ken was on the weaker side. I think he was 10 flat in terms of plus minus, but he's also never lost in round 1 with this team. He's always made it to round 2 or farther. That's great. Again, a little bit of the East factor, but the stats look great. And Ken is on a constant clear upward trajectory, in my opinion. Even though this finals team was one of the weaker teams in terms of plus minus, it was also one of the more impressive teams in terms of like not being driven by some dominant player. So yeah, well done, Ken. I'm loving what you're doing. Excited to see what you're going to do next. Ken is another one of these like even keel guys. I don't think Ken has a real specialty. Ken just kind of plays the game all around well. And I think he's really shored up his weaknesses. I think Ken is way more willing to make moves now than he was back in the past. I think he's gotten over his own pride and like is willing to see what was wrong with his ways back in the day. That's how you get better. Ken does sometimes post some heinously awful Trader Ken's blocks, so we could do without those. But otherwise, Ken is fantastic. All right, number 5. This is going to be a contentious one. Brian. I think Brian was the number 1 in these GM rankings at one point, and he was deserving of it, I think. But then, you know, as you get more data and as you reflect on the past, those opinions change. Brian obviously had one of the best runs ever when he went from the Toby Bowman, Thomas Lovelady team, and then he flipped it in a single season to the Lubomir Rugalug, Juice Knockbar, Riley Golden team. Both of those teams won finals, and then it has been really ugly since. Brian has missed the playoffs more than he's made it in the last 15 seasons. And then that one team that was kind of in between this like Joe Wright-based team, even though the playoff positions look good, the win totals were low, the plus minuses were overall really bad, and it was more Brian capitalizing off of being just in the East when it was really fucking bad than Brian actually making good teams. So I don't even really give a lot of respect to that iteration. So I've been very unimpressed, like notably unimpressed with this most recent iteration, or these last 2 iterations. I think Brian's current team, he has some assets, but his team looks awful. I don't know what his plan is. We will see. Maybe he'll pull it together and I'll look stupid and Brian will look great again. But I'm not predicting that right now. Brian is obviously the trade god. When Brian wants to trade and he feels like he needs to trade, Brian is electric. But I feel like Brian has kind of become like a bit of a curmudgeon old man yelling at clouds about player trade values. And the ironic thing is he kind of is like the reason that happened in a sense. Brian has been known to be tough to work with in trades, to put it lightly at times, and yet he also always demands that the trade market be active. The trade market has become active again, but not because of Brian. Thanks to a lot of new blood like Jake and Cody, we absolutely have active trades. I think Brian needs to get back to that flow of like accepting uncertainty, being willing to take risks, and just being willing to make a lot of moves. And he can get back to that old Brian thing. I think another big factor was he just had really good luck, right? Like Juice Knockbar, Lubomir Rugalug, and Riley Golden all panned out. None of them died. That was a great way to build a good squad. Toby Bowman and Thomas Lovelady, I don't think he drafted Toby Bowman, but like just more high draft picks that panned out. I think Lovelady got a plus TC in there. So Brian absolutely capitalized. There's a reason he's top 5. But if you're wondering why the heck Brian isn't like top 4, 3, 2, 1, obviously there's one person who you would probably put below Brian, but I get to make these rankings and not you. This is why I think Brian is low, and hopefully this is a kick in the butt to get back to old Brian so he can reclaim the top spot. Number 4. I clicked the wrong button. Number 4, me, Zach, Sonic's GM. I'm always a contentious pick because there's kind of a split in the way you can see me. The simple argument is there's no rings. That's really, it's a compelling argument. It's very fun to make. But then there's the flip side, which is, especially if you are someone who's willing to accept growth from a GM, which, you don't have to. You can choose how you rank it. But if you accept that I figured out how to play the game over the first 10 seasons of my career in the league and then became a good GM, because as I would tell people, I realized that you have to tank for 2 seasons, not 1, to make a good team, then it's been stellar. There's been 6 seasons out of 30. I've missed the playoffs, gone to the finals 3 times, gone to the conference finals an additional 3 times, 70-win team, 5 or 6 or 7 60-win teams, gone to round 2 more than round 1. Like all the elite stats that would classically make up a an elite GM, a top 5 GM. And especially that Bruce Banner squad, particularly compelling because it was not built off the back of any cheat code players. It was probably one of the better, well-rounded, team-oriented ball teams. I really hold that team in high regard. I made it, but I consider it like it's, even though it didn't win a championship because it was, just a era where there was a lot of other good teams and I got close. Fortunately, I didn't win it. It's like we look at Ken's team or Idowin's Bean Dip team. Like, these teams won championships with very well team-built squads with a plus-minus of like 8 or 9. The Bruce Banner team had a plus-minus of almost 18, and it did not win, but it was like a really good team-driven squad. Another guy who did something like that is Brian, who's also high in these rankings with the Juice Knockbar squad. That had like a plus-minus of 20. It did win. But the point I'm making is, like, I didn't draft any of those players. I think I drafted Rojo, was the one player I drafted. I made trades for every single one of those players. I made FA acquisitions for every single one of those players. So when I look at, like, peaks, if you just look statistically, well, finals are a stat. But if you look through the context of the way I kind of perceive pure GM skill, I consider that team to be one of the best. There was, like, RNG was completely removed from the equation, or was very heavily removed. And it was a lot of great skills. And then, like, obviously I took another random-ass team-oriented team in the Jordan Broussard team and Thomas Baxter, and there was some other Barney Dimmick. Like, just a bunch of randos to the finals. Kenny Payne to the conference finals. The big question is Damon Vogler going to be wasted? If I waste Damon Vogler, you can be sure I'm going down on these rankings. Because the top 5 is not a place where you just get to stay. The top 5 demands that you consistently produce results at an extremely high level. I've been a beneficiary of the fact that, like, Kyle left and Max left, because if those guys were still around, I would almost certainly have dropped in these rankings. It's probably been the weakest era for the Sonics. Just in this, like, it's weird because it's kind of in between eras. I didn't tank, but I did change teams. So I'm on thin ice. I recognize that, but I still think there's just so many good results to fall back on. And it's like, I'm on thin ice because I'm only going to round 2 half the time right now. I like the future prospect of my team. Damon Vogler is entering his prime. In terms of GM style, the big thing for me is just getting back to the activity level of the old Zach. Obviously, being commish took a lot out of me. I think I finally recovered and am willing to come back. It's hard being commish and being good. Goddamn, Max, I am so impressed. Palm, we'll see if you can keep it up. You basically got to carry your old team, but, like, if you can make a new iteration while being commish, goddamn the respect I have for you. Because it's a lot of effort to be commish. So now that I'm out of being commish, I expect my results to go promptly up. And if not, well, then too bad for me. I'm going to have to go down these rankings a bit. That's all I got to say about myself. Number 4, love it, hate it. Talk about it in the chat more than anything. Number 3, Gasper, the tank commander, the legend. Gasper has a very impressive resume of winning 3 rings in his last 3 iterations. The only GM to do 3 rings across 3 teams in the modern era. I think Brian did. If you count Brian's old rings, he has done it. But I don't count Brian's old rings because I wasn't there for it. Gasper has a very particular strategy that's not done by basically anyone else. Palm is starting to do this with success. The longer tank. Gasper obviously is infamous for tanking for 4 or 5 seasons when he wants to. He hasn't always, but he also has. Gasper tanked 3 seasons with this most recent build. He tanked 4 seasons before, and he plays a very slow, buildy, rely on prospects type of style of GMing, which not a lot of people do. He's not super trade heavy. He really only trades when he's about to have cap problems, and he just needs to trade off high-value prospects. Gasper always wins. Until Gasper fucks up, he will keep getting these top slots. But it is important to note that, like, there's a perfect GM, like the ideal GM, and he does not tank as much as Gasper. So Gasper, like, I was thinking about these rankings, and I wanted to put Gasper in the 1 slot because he's just winning rings with every team he makes. He's winning a ton of games. He's having these huge plus minuses. They're great. But Gasper, is she's just tanking too much for my liking compared to some of the guys that are at the tippy top. Until Gasper gets a little more like he pushes the limit. I don't feel like Gasper is pushing the limit. I feel like he's just got this formula. I don't think everybody can execute the formula, but he's got the formula. He's just following through on it. And you're not going to get the top slot until you push the limit a little bit. I would love to see Gasper miss the playoffs for 2 seasons instead of 4 seasons, instead of 6 seasons to claim that top spot. Or he needs to start winning. Like, these need to be dynasties, right? It can't be just like 6 years of contention and 1 ring. It needs to be like 4 rings and 10 years of contention. So that's how Gasper can get better. I really don't expect Gasper to get worse. The dude's been great since day one. He, as far as anybody can be locked in to a top 3 slot, Gasper is probably that guy. He's probably that guy along with number 2, Bryant. Unlike Gasper, who is the tank god, Bryant exists on the other end of the spectrum and is the churn god. Bryant just always is getting his team a little younger while maintaining the same quality. He's been doing it for 20 seasons, and he continually succeeds in the playoffs. He continually wins 60 games. Just looks fantastic, and it's his style. Bryant is like it's funny because Bryant isn't in the main chat, but he's easily the most active GM at the same time. Bryant is just a dog in the direct messages. Anybody who's posted a block that's involved in an enticing player knows damn well how active Bryant is, because he's in there ready to send an offer, trying to get that value. It's easily Bryant's best characteristic. It's just like, I think to be a great GM, I think most people in the top 10 have acknowledged this, certainly everybody in the top 5, is just that to succeed, you need to be willing to enter these uncomfortable states where you have a team that is not ready, and you just have to know that the next good trade is always out there, and you just have to accept that so that you can be in these intermediary states where you maybe don't have a good team, but you have a lot of liquid value, and you'll come out the other side. Okay, Bryant is like the king of that. Bryant is like, if Bryant sees a way to gain in abstract value, even if it makes his team a little worse, he's always going to take it, because he knows eventually he will convert that abstract value back into team quality at some point. He's so good at doing that. He's a fantastic GM. I think he's pretty good at coaching as well. He's consistently punching up in the playoffs, it feels. Just overall a fantastic GM. I didn't give him the 1 slot because I feel like I'm always dogging on this GM who is number 1, and I do think he deserves a call out once. That is Adam. Look, Adam is a contentious guy to me. Maybe not to everybody else. Everybody else, oh, he's won 8 fucking rings. Of course he's got to be number 1. I don't really care about how many rings you've won, obviously, because I have done, and I need to satisfy my own ego. But Adam has won 8 rings. He's had 2 cheat code players. So that's the problem, right? How many GMs do I think, okay, let's say we took Bryant and we gave Bryant, Arroyo, and Stitches. How many rings do you think Bryant would have won? How many rings do you think Gasper would have won? How many rings do you think I would have won? How many rings do you think Brian would have won? Obviously, you think I would have won 0, but the other guys, would they have won 8? I think they might have. Would they have won more? I think it's possible if the RNG fell right. That's why I'm so bullish on, or bearish on Adam. The best iteration of Adam's skill to me was when I joined the league, and he had that Frankie Lenz, Christopher Coward, David Buckner team, which actually did not have any cheat codes on it and was very good. But at the same time, outside of a few close fails, Adam has really played perfect. I mean, the man has 5 70-win teams. He's got 8 rings. He has only been upset once or twice, which is expected, right? I said this earlier, but if you're a guy, anybody who's pumping out 60-win teams, look at anybody in the top 5, anybody in the top 10. Everybody's got a 60-win team that lost in round 1. It's just inevitable, right? We're playing an RNG game. Adam has some of those, but he's not constantly mucking up. If I look at Adam's overall existence, Adam really has 3 big fuck-ups in his entire career. This last season, he was a 70-win team that lost in round 2. I forget who that was to. And then way back in the day, there was when he got upset in round 2 by the Fred Miller Jack Tolman's squad. That was also, I would consider, an upset where Adam disappointed. And then you compare that against 8 rings, an additional finals appearance, an additional like 5 conference finals appearances, or maybe like 7 conference finals appearances where he was playing equivalent squads that he lost to, whether it was the Rockets or DeAndre Ayton or whoever the hell. So Adam has really produced. I do hate putting him at this top slot. I'm going to do it this once because I think it's worth like giving him the clout for the 8 rings. But unless he really starts firing up the ring engine again, Adam will not be staying here. So Adam, congratulations on the number 1 slot. That's all we got for the RBSL GM rankings, y'all. Let me know what you think. Did I rank everybody wrong, or did I only rank myself wrong? Let me know. Post who you think the top 30 are, or at least the top 5. Tell me why Evan is a top 5 GM. That's really the question I want answered. Why is Evan a top 5 GM? If you can answer that question for me, I will listen. Anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy this. Maybe we'll come back in 5 seasons and see where we're all at. But until then, stay breezy and toodles.